Hello everyone, welcome back to Picto Learning. This is Priya and I am so glad to see you here again. Today we are moving forward with Article 71 of the Indian Constitution, matters relating to or connected with the election of a president or vice president. So what is it all about? Well, Article 71 deals with the election of the president and the vice president. But more specifically, it talks about what to do if there is problem or dispute during their election process. Let's break it down step by step in the simplest way possible. Clause 1 talks about who settle disputes about presidential or vice presidential elections. If there is a question or a legal issue about whether the election of the president or vice president was valid, it won't be decided by any ordinary court. Only the Supreme Court of India has the power to decide such disputes. In 1967, after Dr. Zakir Hussain was elected president, someone filed a petition in the Supreme Court challenging his election. They argued that he had not taken the MP's oath under Article 84A, so he was not qualified. But the Supreme Court accepted the petition, looked into the matter carefully, and finally dismissed the petition, saying that Dr. Zakir Hussain was not an MP. He was vice president, which has a different path. Taking the MP's oath was not required to contest presidential elections. In this way, the Supreme Court rejected the petition. So this case perfectly shows Article 71 Clause 1 in action because the doubt about the election was handled only by the Supreme Court and the Supreme Court's decision was final. Clause 2 of Article 71 talks about what if the court finds the election invalid. If the Supreme Court declares that the election is void or invalid, that does not mean everything the president or vice president did before that decision also becomes invalid. Whatever decisions or actions they took before the court ruling will still be considered valid and legal. Any kind of decisions, including signing bills, appointments, or any other constitutional duties performed before the court's decision remains valid. This clause has not been used in real life yet. This means, till now, the Supreme Court has never cancelled a presidential election. But if it ever happens, the seat becomes vacant from that day itself. This is what Article 71 Clause 2 says. Clause 3 talks about Parliament's role in the matter of presidential or vice presidential elections. According to this clause, Parliament has the power to make laws about the election process of the president and vice president. So Parliament can create rules for how the elections are held, how disputes are handled, and what rules apply if something unusual happens during the election. For example, after the Constitution came into force, Parliament passed the Presidential and Vice Presidential Elections Act 1952. Later in 1974, detailed rules were framed, like how to file nominations, how votes are counted, and how disputes are handled. These were all created using the power given under Article 71 Clause 3. So this clause gives Parliament the authority to handle the entire election process through law. Clause 4 talks about when can elections be questioned. Here is something important. The validity of the election of the president or vice president cannot be questioned just because of some vacancy in the electoral college. For example, imagine one MLA's seat is vacant during the presidential election. That does not mean the whole election becomes invalid. The process still goes on. In the 2002 presidential election, there were indeed vacancies in the electoral college. In Rajya Sabha, 5 seats were vacant, and in state legislative assemblies, 6 seats were vacant. These vacancies were due to various reasons, including disqualifications and pending elections. Despite these vacancies, the election proceeded as scheduled and Draupadi Murmu was elected as the 15th President of India. So this is Article 71 of the Indian Constitution. Let's move to the next article of the Indian Constitution, that is Article 72, power of President to grant pardons etc. and to suspend, remit or commute sentences in certain cases. This article gives some really special powers to the President of India. You can think of it as a second chance power, but it is used very carefully and only in serious matters. Now let's break down what type of powers the President has under this article. This article contains 3 clauses and the first clause contains 3 subclauses. First of all, pause the video and read all the clauses. Clause 1. President's power to forgive or reduce punishment. According to this clause, the President can pardon, reprieve, respite, remit, suspend or commute any punishment given by the court, even a death sentence. Pardon means completely forgive the punishment. Reprieve, delay the punishment temporarily. Respite, reduce the severity of punishment, especially if the person is sick, pregnant, etc. Remit, reduce the duration of the sentence without changing its nature. Suspend, put the punishment on hold for some time. And commute, change the punishment to something less severe. But this power applies in 3 specific situations. Number 1. Court-martial cases. If someone from the armed forces is punished by a military court, the President can reduce or cancel that punishment. Suppose a soldier is sentenced to 10 years by a court-martial. The President can reduce it or even cancel it under Article 72. Number 2. Cases under union or central laws. If someone is punished for breaking a law that comes under the central government, like planning a terror attack under UAPA, trafficking drugs under the NDPS Act, or committing serious crime under IPC, then the President of India has the power to intervene even after the court has given its final verdict. For example, suppose a person is found guilty of planning a terror attack and is sentenced to life imprisonment. In such a case, the President can step in using Article 72 of the Indian Constitution to reduce the punishment or grant a pardon. And number 3, death sentence cases. This is the most well-known one. The President can pardon or reduce death penalties too. Let's talk about a real-life example in this context. In 2012, President Pratibha Patil used her power under Article 72 to commute the death sentences of around 30 convicts to life imprisonment after careful review of their cases. These cases were of individuals convicted of heinous crimes like mass murder, rape, and child sacrifice. So these were the 3 subclauses of the first clause of Article 72. Clause 2 talks about military officers can also change court-martial punishments. We have seen that the President has power to grant pardon, reprieve, remission, suspension or commutation in court-martial cases under Article 72 Clause 1 Subclause A. But this clause, that is Article 72 Clause 2, makes sure that this does not interfere with or override the powers already given to military officers under laws like Army Act 1950, Navy Act 1957 and Air Force Act 1950. So both the President and armed forces officers can have roles in court-martial sentences independently. Now moving to the last clause of this article, that is clause 3. Governors also have power in death sentence cases. Now this clause talks about death sentences again, but with an important point. Even though the President has the power to reduce or cancel a death sentence, this does not take away the governor's power to do the same within their state. In simple terms, both the President and the Governor can grant relief in death sentence cases. It depends on the type of law involved. For example, if the conviction is under a state law, the governor may use their power under Article 161. But if it involves a central law or a national level case, then the president may act under Article 72. So that is all for today's video. Today we covered Article 71 and 72 of the Indian Constitution in detail. I hope you found it interesting and easy to understand. Do not forget to like, comment and subscribe to Picto Learning for more such videos. See you in the next video. Until then, thank you so much for watching and supporting Picto Learning.